Hello, my name is Michael Pjetraj. I'm the Deputy Director with the North Carolina Division of Air Quality. This presentation is regarding active energy, and it's a discussion of the permit application and the permitting process for active energy. Active Energy Renewable Power has submitted a permit application. Through this presentation, we will discuss the permitting process. We'll describe the permit classification. We'll share expected facility emissions compared with actual countywide emissions. We'll describe the equipment that's being permitted and summarize the permit requirements, as well as the responses to any comments that we received during this period will be captured in the permit review. So we'll start off with discussing the permitting process. In the permit process, an applicant will submit a permit application to the Division of Air Quality. That application has to be received and deemed to be complete, and then the review process can begin. As part of that review process, we go through and verify all of the emission factors and the process rates that have been submitted in the technical application. Based on the emission factors, the process rates, we calculate what the expected emissions would be from the facility, and then we determine the permit classification. The three classifications you may commonly hear of are small, synthetic minor, or Title V. Title V being some of the largest facilities that we have, which could have greater than 100 tons a year of a criteria pollutant. Criteria pollutants being like sulfur dioxide or nitrogen oxides or particulate matter. A synthetic minor is a facility that's taken a limit to stay below that major source threshold, or a small facility which truly, based on their emission rates and their emission estimates, would not be able to exceed the major source threshold. We determine the applicable rules and regulations that apply to the facility, both federal and state rules. And then we write enforceable permit requirements for the applicable rules. And finally, we would take final action on that permit application, which may include issuing the permit. So when the permitting process is completed, that's not the end of what the Division of Air Quality does. That's actually just the beginning of what the division does. We issue permits that require a combination of, if not all of the following: inspections, monitoring and record keeping, reporting by the facility, as well as source testing. And the DAQ conducts unannounced inspections to verify compliance. So I want to emphasize that our compliance program is an integral part of what we do at facilities. The permitting allows the facilities to operate, and then the compliance program ensures that they follow their permit. This is where the facility will be located. It's just outside of Lumberton. The permit application was for a proposed new wood pellet manufacturing operation to be located at the site of the former Alamac American Knits facility located at 1885 Alamac Road in Lumberton. So based on the permit application and looking at the permit classification, the application was received on November 4th, 2019. A review of the emission rates and factors shows that the active energy facility has the potential to emit of less than 100 tons of a criteria pollutant and less than 25 tons of total hazardous air pollutants. Based on that analysis, the facility would be classified as a small or a minor source. This is a summary of the process equipment associated with the facility. On the far left, you'll see the emission source IDs that will be listed in the permit, as well as emission source descriptions, any control devices that are associated with the individual pieces of equipment, as well as a control device description. The primary pieces of equipment would be a natural gas fired boiler, a pressure cooker process that has a control system termed a water circulation condenser, and then a screw press, pellet press, natural gas fired dryer process. Other equipment that will be utilized at the facility that's not required to be on the air quality permit will be a wastewater treatment plant, 180 horsepower diesel fired fire pump, a 15 horsepower diesel-fired emergency generator, a propane vaporizer, and the pellet storage. This is a drawing of the process description. Green and dry wood chips and other are the raw material that enter into the process. They enter into a pressure cooker using steam generated from the natural gas-fired boiler. Water vapor and volatile organic compounds are condensed in a water cooler. The wet cellulosic material from the pressure cooker is then sent to the screw presses for dewatering. The dewatered cellulosic material is sent to the pellet presses. The finished pellets are then sent to a 4 million BTU per hour natural gas-fired dryer, and then the pellets are ultimately conveyed to a pellet storage bin. So let's discuss some of the applicable rules for the processes that we just went over. The applicable federal rules for the combustion at the facilities is NSPS subpart DC for the boiler, and then NSPS subpart 4I and the NESHAP subpart 4Z for the engines. NSPS stands for the New Source Performance Standards, and that's included in the federal regulations, 40 Code of Federal Regulations, Section 60. And NESHAP stands for the National Emission Standard for Hazardous Air Pollutants. So these are rules that would apply to any facility that has these kind of equipment installed. State rule requirements fall under 15A NCAC, North Carolina Administrative Code, 2Q309, which is a notification of startup. Upon startup of the facility, they have to notify the division that that has occurred. NCAC 2D605, VOC testing, which is required within 180 days of startup of the facility. And NCAC 2D611 for the condenser, continuous temperature monitoring, record keeping, and reporting. Other applicable rules to the facility include particulate standards for fuel burning indirect heat exchangers, particulates from miscellaneous industrial processes, sulfur dioxide emissions from combustion sources, the control of visible emissions, excess emission reporting and malfunctions, particulates from fugitive dust emission sources, the control and prohibition of odorous emissions, and other emission rates that may require a permit from other pollutants at the facility. So all of these rules fall into the fabric of our compliance program and require the facility to comply with every facet of the rules through their record keeping, reporting, and through our inspection program. So let's discuss what air emissions are expected from the facility. On the far left, we have a list of the pollutants that are expected to be emitted from the facility. The middle column is the expected actual air emissions in tons per year. Now, this is based on how the facility actually intends to operate. On the far right, we have the Robeson County total air emissions, and this is just a summary of all of the facilities located in Robeson County and what their air emissions are. This gives a comparative view of the emissions from this facility relative to all other emissions in the county. So for fine particulate matter, PM 2.5, this facility will emit 0.05 tons per year relative to a countywide emission rate of 656 tons a year. For sulfur dioxide, the facility will emit 0.05 tons per year relative to countywide emissions of 86 tons a year. For carbon monoxide, the facility will emit 7.91 tons per year relative to countywide emissions above 18,000 tons a year. For volatile organic compounds, the facility will emit 23 tons a year relative to a countywide emissions of 4,000 tons per year. For nitrogen oxides, 9 tons per year relative to 3,000 tons per year countywide. And then toxic hazardous air pollutants, of which acetaldehyde is the highest estimated, 2.48 tons a year relative to 797 tons based on a running calendar year 2014 through 2019 summary of emissions from the county. There are 8 toxic air pollutants that have been identified. All of those toxic pollutants are at emission rates well below the permitting requirements. So a recap of major issues. The majority of the air emissions associated with the facility are expected to be VOCs, or volatile organic compounds. There are no TAPs, toxic air pollutants, that will exceed the rate requiring a permit or modeling from the facility. And the volatile organic compound emissions, compliance will be verified through stack testing and continuous parameter monitoring. So if you want to take a deeper dive into the documentation, the draft permit review, the permit application itself, as well as an environmental justice snapshot and public notice are located at the URL listed on the slide. The public comment period will close on March 27th at 5 p.m. That's a 7-day extension from the initial notice of March 20th, 2020. You can email your comment to daq.publiccomments@ncdnr.gov. Please type active energy renewable power in the subject line so we can more readily identify it. If you have any comments or questions, you're welcome to reach out to our Fayetteville Regional Office Supervisor, Heather Carter. Her contact information is listed. Or you can reach out to Greg Reeves, the Permit Coordinator in the Fayetteville Regional Office.